Hello, Woo Crew. Welcome back to the first episode of 2024, the Woo Curious podcast. I'm Eileen. I'm your host here with
Ellie.
your other host. And we're so excited to be dropping in the new Gregorian year and chatting a little bit all about what this day and this new kind of potential new start means or how we approach it from our woo perspective. But first, we'll start, as always, by reading a review from Apple Pod for one of our wonderful listeners. So, Ellie, do you want to read that for us?
Sure. The review is titled Insightful and Out of the Box. Love listening to these two witchy queens and getting to know more about them and what brought them to dive so deeply into what most of us feel but don't really act on. And this is from Michelle.
Thank you for that wonderful review. And as always, we love hearing from you. If you're listening to this over on Apple, go ahead and leave a review. If you're listening on Spotify, you can give us 5 stars and maybe pop over to Apple and leave a review. I don't think that Spotify lets you review, but we really love having these to read out at the beginning of every episode. And as always, if you have any requests or would like us to cover a certain topic, please send us a message. You can do so either on Spotify or come find us over at the.woocurious.podcast on Instagram and let us know. What do you want us to talk about? What do you want us to share? Okay, let's drop in to this week. But first, Ellie, what magical thing happened to you in the past week?
Well, when we're recording this, we celebrated our holiday, and the 25th was a day where my lover and I just both looked at each other and said, we need more of this in our life. And the more of this that we needed is a day of nothing, of wide open space, of no errand running, of no having to be somewhere at a certain time. It was just hanging out, chit-chatting. There was baths involved. There was lots of coffee and food. And I just really loved the spaciousness of the day. And so we sort of made a schedule, like to schedule the unscheduled time in our lives, that once a month we would have something that we would call the SPA day or the spa day. As one time my lover walked past the store that had spa written on it on a sandwich board outside, and they said, "Oh, what's an SPA store?" And I was like, that's my favorite place, okay? That's where I go.
I love that, but also Sacred Pleasure Day.
Oh, Sacred Pleasure Day. That's exactly what we're going to do all day long. Never mind, not called a spa day anymore. No longer.
No longer. I love that. I love that piece too that you said you've scheduled it in because so many of us need to actually schedule those days in. If we just say, oh, this is really nice, we should do it every month, it's not going to happen.
No,
You actually do need to purposefully create that time.
we'll talk more about that in this episode today as well. But first,
Yeah.
tell me, what was your magical day?
Well, I mean, I was in Hawaii, so I feel
All
like
of it.
my all of it, my magical moment was Hawaii, was Maui. I had so many messages from people who were like, "Oh, let me know if you need suggestions or recommendations." And like clearly Maui is a place that many people love and feel like they know well. It was not my first time there. I was so fortunate to have been asked to house sit. So I was house sitting in Kihei, but it was it's so lovely to walk outside and not be cold. I
What a concept,
just
huh?
my body coming home has been like, what is this? I am so cold all the time. That might be the most magical part of it. I mean, the ocean is colors that you can't imagine. The whole island always feels like the colors are more saturated than they are elsewhere. Every time I'm there taking pictures, I'm like, there's no filter on this. This is actually what this place looks like. I didn't see a lot of whale action, but I did see some from the beach. Usually you see a
Ooh,
little bit. The humpback whales migrate down there in the winter to have their babies because it's shallow and warm and there are no natural predators.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got to see a little bit of Wales at a distance and just really enjoyed slow mornings and afternoons on the beach. It was delicious.
I think delicious is the only way you could describe that, actually. I
Yeah.
remember the first time that I went to Maui, actually, it's my favorite island, but also I have not been to any other island in Hawaii, of
I
Hawaii.
feel the same.
You know, I went there and I was like, this is it, especially for what I'm looking for. Like just some relaxation time, some low key, like beach
Mhm.
adventure. It has it. And I remember being there and looking at postcards and looking at the environment and thinking, like, this is exactly what it looks like. Like,
Mhm.
it's not photoshopped.
It's
It's exactly how it looks in photos. And not that I was surprised by that, but it's just like a place that I've never seen before. Even
mhm.
here on the West Coast, we do have glacial blue water and we do have other really incredible places. I'm so fortunate to live out on this coast, but it's not Hawaii.
No. No, it's not. There is deep magic there. And a lot of I'm always very conscious when I'm there of the fact that there's also a lot of deep trespass. The indigenous peoples are a lot of them are quite angry still because it's not that long ago that the US colonized them. And so there's always a bit of that balance and that I try really to keep it to hold it present that I am a visitor and I feel so grateful that I can be on that land and just recognizing the harms that have been perpetrated against the land as well and the people
Mm,
who live there. We
yeah.
can hold both. I was reading this morning in Women Who Rose Rooted, which was our December book club book at the time that we're recording this. We're doing book club this evening in our Patreon. But I was reading and reminded of the word solastalgia, which is like nostalgia, a longing for past times. Solastalgia is that kind of heartache that we feel about the environmental degradation that has happened around the world and living with that. And there was a really important point made about the fact that you can hold that and hold hope and still enjoy the environment. And if we get into a place of just feeling absolutely helpless or hopeless, then we can't do anything to change it. We need to be able to sit with the discomfort and the pain, but also to sit with the joy and
Mm,
the presence.
I love this. I love this. Like the duality and the contrast is exactly sort of how we feel even in this exact moment in time historically, with everything that's going on in the world today. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shall we move
Shall
into what it is that we're talking about today? January 1st. First of all, welcome to January 1st, a
we?
new Gregorian calendar year,
That
2024.
that random seeming date that who was Gregory?
Yeah, who is this dude? Who gave him authority to say that this is the beginning?
Yeah, he clearly didn't know what the heck he was talking about
No,
because energetically it is not a beginning,
no.
which is what we're going to chat about a bit today. We're going to talk about kind of our own experiences with January 1st and the whole resolution craze that our culture has about why this date is energetically not a very good new start date, but also acknowledging the fact that it is a new start in a lot of ways because our whole society is kind of wrapped around it. What have your experiences with January 1st, like thinking back to how you engaged with it or felt towards it growing up or in your early adult years? Yeah, how do you feel about this date?
Well, I think that I'm somebody I love a new planner. I love a new year. I love a new.
Hmm.
And as a youth, I also love September because I love the school year, getting back into routine, feeling like I have a direction again after the wonderful free-spiritedness of the summertime. But I always felt like there was this heightened anxiety and rush towards the new year and really understanding what my goals are. Like I hadn't quite finished with the former year. I hadn't quite finished with celebrating the holiday. I hadn't quite finished with all of those things. And like, bam, we're right here. We need to have it all figured out by January 1, or I don't know what's going to happen, or the boogeyman's going to come get us. Hecate is going to be lurking in our closet. And actually, she probably is, but that's another story. Uh, and I really felt a lot of anxiety towards this exact moment as we move towards today. And over the last few years, I've sort of loosened the reins, so to speak, on needing to have it all figured out and needing a few things. Like this ceremony for closing the year can be earlier in December, like having the permission for myself to celebrate whatever it was that I needed to celebrate at whatever time, and really feeling super aligned with times like Yule. But even like at the beginning of December, to start thinking about January and how I want to close out my year so that when Yule comes around, I'm thinking to myself, great, this is how we want to close things out. And that's been what a big part of this week has been for me is the closing of things. But similar to, I'm coming back to a concept in yoga, as I often do, of the sound Om. And through our cycles of the year and through our cycles as maiden, mother, crone, and death, we have this pregnant pause, like this pause for possibility. And what we
Mhm.
don't have in our Gregorian calendar is that pause. And maybe the pause is like from Christmas Day until January 1st. That's the pause because we don't know what's going on. And we're eating mashed potatoes and gravy every meal of the, I mean, I would be eating mashed potatoes and gravy every meal until they were
Gone.
completely, yeah. And then I'd be making more probably. So there's a couple of like, moments in time where there's time for pause, but it's not quite enough of a pause to feel like you have the momentum, because we're in deep, deep, deep hibernation mode if we're following the
Mhm.
natural year, the wheel of the year. And so I've always felt really, really like anxious about this, and really like I'm
Mhm.
doing something that obviously is not, like, I'm not on the same wavelength as everybody else, and I need to get on that wavelength. Like whatever I need to do, I need to
Mhm.
get on that wavelength. But tell me about your experience.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of similarities. I love that you say that idea of loving a fresh start, because I do too. I really, I love the first of every month. Feels like a good way to fresh start. I love a good Monday. I love a new planner.
Mm,
But I
a
had
new
this
moon.
similar, a new moon, like, yes, give me all the starts. I was just jotting down all the different starts or new starts that there feels like there are through the year to me. So obviously there's Samhain, which is the beginning of the new year, if you're following the witch's calendar, the wheel of the year. But then we also have like the Gregorian New Year. We also have the beginning of Aries season, the astrological new year. We've also got, for me, in bulk feels like kind of a new year because that's leading into spring. That's February 1st. That's like, okay, now there's some energy. And then the Chinese New Year happens around then too, end of January-ish. And then there's September, which always feels like a new year start too. So there are so many places. And January 1st just never felt like a good one. And for a lot of years, for me, it felt like not a great day for a new start because I was up well past my bedtime on the 31st, usually drinking. And the first always felt like a write-off. I was usually tired and hungover. And so then I would get to the end of that day and beat myself up. I'd feel guilty for having squandered the new start and, not started the new habit, or I'd set too many resolutions and they'd all be already not fulfilled by the end of day one. And so it really felt like this permission. Again, there's so many moments of permission in the wheel of the year for me to say, oh, yeah, this day just doesn't mean much of anything aside from the fact that it's a new calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it gave me this ability to just enjoy the day as a day and set a fresh start when it felt more relevant to me.
I
Yeah.
think what you pointing out as well, last night I did a full moon card reading, and at the time of the recording this, and one of the things that I talked about was the fact that we have these moments in time for the full moon, and we follow the astrological sign of the moon. And this one here was Cancer. And we have this emotional ride that we're going through in this present moment of trying to, like, scamp towards this having it all figured out. And instead, if we take that pressure off, like January 1st, we're barely done the 25th, for example, and we're still eating our mashed potatoes. And then all of a sudden we need to have a whole year figured out. And I think if we start to, like, bring our nervous system down to more alignment with nature, we begin to see, and as we follow the wheel of the year, we begin to see that we have all of these seasons. And the
Hmm.
seasons in life can also embody the goals or the intentions or the desires that we have for those moments. And I know, Eileen, you're going to share a little tidbit about this later on, but imagine if we actually aligned our goal setting to be less around having it all figured out on the 1st of January for the whole year, and more in terms of what is the energy of the season or the wheel of the year or the moment in time that we're recognizing. And when we break it down to smaller bite-sized pieces, they're actually more attainable because we can focus on them. And
Hmm.
that focus gets lost. Like, for anyone who has set an intention in January, like, tell me in July what your intention was. Like, if you can
Yeah.
remember it, for example, and if it's still going on strong.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's too long. Like it's great to have an overview of the year and, thinking about hopes and dreams and setting intentions, sure, but like a year is a long time. And as a human, you don't actually have the ability to hold that much time in your consciousness and a sense of like what can actually unfold over the course of a whole year. And you mentioned too this sense of like, yeah, we're only a few days out from that holiday that so many of us celebrate that is wonderful, but also exhausting. This period, this week between Christmas and New Year's is a very liminal time. But I feel like that liminality really wants to extend out beyond January 1st, at least by a few days.
Yeah, and if we think about Yule, we just had our darkest day, and we're just coming out of this hibernation. Like, we're supposed to have this all figured out by, 7 days later, 8 days,
Mhm.
10 days later. No, no,
No,
not gonna happen.
no. More like, I mean, I feel very much like Imbolc is much more of an energetic start. For me, it's part of the reason that I'm opening up 3 one-on-one spaces to work with me in a longer container, a 6-month container, and they don't start until just before the end of January. Like that last week of January is when we'll have our first calls. And that feels like, okay, that's enough time. I was like, yeah, 2024 start. And then my whole body was like, wait a minute, this
Yeah.
doesn't align. No. Mm. And I struggled even to talk about it and to, you know, sell, promote, whatever, this container because right now, like, I just want to like turtle.
Yeah, we're
I
cozy.
just want to be, I just
We're
want to be in the
cozy.
dark and yeah, cozying up and reading excessively. And is there such thing as excessive reading? I don't think so, but it's the sense of right now is not the time.
Not the time to do it.
No.
So now that we've outed ourselves, a big FU to January 1st and your stupid Gregorian calendar and your stupid goal setting, let's talk about numerology and then what we
Mm.
do, especially for this year, and then what we do coming into our setting intentions for a quote unquote new year.
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't delved deeply into numerology, but it's popped up for me a few times recently. And so I've started to pay a little bit more attention. But in numerology, 2024 is an 8 year. So you just add up 2 plus 2 plus 4 and you get 8. And it is a number that's really associated with like abundance and success. And it's really auspicious. If we turn it sideways, it's the
Infinity.
infinity symbol. And so it feels like after a year of kind of waiting and preparing and everybody being like, holy shit, will this year ever end? Like we are actually getting a boost of energy and action and ability to bring into the world the things that we've kind of been ruminating on or preparing in a way.
I love this. You're reminding me of somebody who, when I lived in Ottawa, did in-person ceremony, really is what it
Hmm.
was. And we would go, some friends of mine and I would go see him speak. And his name is Pete Bernard, for anybody who's interested. He's also known as, I'm not sure if he still goes by the Algonquin Medicine Man, but he may just go now by Pete Bernard. You can find him on major social medias. In 2022, I remember it must have been just before the whole Pandy thing, because we were meeting in person. He said the next year was going to be a doozy of a year and that we needed to put on our armor. We needed to suit up. And I thought to myself, like, come on, like the year before was a doozy. And then the following year, he was like, ah, ha, 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 ha. If you thought that was a doozy of a year, the next year is going to be even worse as we're laying some foundations for things, which was what 2023 was. And
Hmm.
for 2024, I'm really curious about what he has to say because every year, things that he has mentioned, I've thought to myself, like, is it really going to be that bad? And literally, it's just been like one thing after the next. And whether it's personal or globally or however it turns out, the man is tuned in. He's
Hmm.
definitely tuned in. And I think like I said, I'm just really curious to see what he has to say for the 2024 year. Stay tuned. Go find him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Media.
I should I'll look him up too. Before this episode, I was looking up some of, what random websites had to say. And the general consensus is that it should be nice and auspicious for us, which
Mhm, mhm.
thank goodness. But it's going to be a big year. Like we finally have Pluto into Aquarius and staying there for the first time in like 2 decades, I think it is. And that's like the
Major.
planet of the underworld in the sign of the alien, basically, as out there
Here you are.
Aquarians. Yeah, here we are, truly in the age of Aquarius.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah,
Finally. Truly.
finally, truly, my mom used to sing that song to me all the time when I was growing up.
Her little Aquarian. Is your sister not an Aquarius as well?
No, she's a Libra,
Oh,
September
okay.
29th.
She's over by me. Okay. Yeah. 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 Okay.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
I was like two Aquarians in one household. There's a lot there.
She's also a projector though.
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
That's the association. Thank goodness for that.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, cycle energetics, I think as well. We have things like Blue Monday that happens. And Blue Monday it's the third Monday of January, which is where all New Year's intentions go to die.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's something like our resolutions, 90% of people's resolutions don't make it past
no,
the first
because
3 weeks.
we don't even know how to goal set. This is the other thing that I think we can bring into this is that we literally don't know how to goal set. Those 90-day chunks are brilliant because we can break things down in a different way, but we don't know how to goal set when it comes to setting the New Year's resolution. We're just like, yeah, I'm gonna go to the gym every day. Dude, start with one day. Start with getting a gym membership.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah. Small, bite-sized chunks.
Exactly.
Yeah. So true.
So I'm curious to know some of the New Year's resolutions in the past that your former self set for yourself and how they went.
Mm. It's interesting. I'm trying to think. As an adult, I think I've shunned New Year's resolutions pretty hard for a long time, since my early 20s. I definitely remember the New Year's resolution of wanting to drink more water.
Oh, wow.
It never went well. It didn't.
Yeah.
It just never happened until I started living with Greg, who drinks lots of water and reminds me to drink water throughout the day. I am now more hydrated than I have ever been in my whole life. And
I love this.
yeah, so I feel like it would last for a day or two, but nothing ever stuck for long at all. And I do definitely remember years where I had like a list of, probably drink less, eat healthier, exercise, go to bed earlier, drink more water, all the standard things, none of which felt particularly inspired and none of which ever stuck.
No, never stuck. I just like we have set ourselves up for failure. We have
Mm.
really the New Year's BS has really set ourselves up for failure. Okay, shall we talk about what it is that we do now at the turning of the calendar, and for that matter, beyond the turning of the calendar to celebrate a new year or a new, as we've been referring to this as.
Yes, we totally should. And if you're curious about what Ellie's New Year's resolution was so many years ago that went real sideways, you've got to subscribe to the Patreon because those details are in there.
Oh, it's good. It's
It's so
good.
good. Our misspent youths.
I was so young and innocent.
Oh dear, weren't we all?
Mhm.
Okay, so back to some of some of the ways that we do engage with this shift in the new years. I was writing an email to my list last week, this week as we're recording, and I was talking about how while I don't love this Gregorian New Year energetically, there is a collective energy that does come with it. And so there is this sense of being able to harness it in some ways. And I mentioned that one year, a few years back, I shifted from even thinking about resolutions into thinking about intentions. And I think that intention setting, I mean, it can be done any day of the year. And so using this kind of liminal time and space between Christmas and this New Year day to do some introspection, some journaling, and intention setting for the year to come feels like a good alignment. It feels mellow enough. And I think that there's a benefit in intention setting at any time of the year. So I like to do some journaling and set aside some time with questions, whether or not I come up with those questions, to really kind of sink in and reflect back on the year that we've had and dream ahead to the year that's coming.
Do you have a favorite journal?
No.
A favorite, you don't have a favorite brand of journal?
No, I did have, I'm trying to, oh, they're all packed away. No, I kind of flipped between them. I did have one that my sister had got me from Chapters that had like a cushy
Ooh, yeah.
outside, and the
Yep.
pages were really nice and the line spacing was like really good. But then I ended up with a journal by Morgan Harper Nichols,
Mhm.
who the poet, and that one
Love.
was really nice and lay flat really well. And now I actually, it's interesting. I would like a new journal. I don't have an actual journal. I have the book that I do my morning pages in when I do my morning pages, but I've kind of fallen out of habit of that. So no, I really don't have a go-to right now.
I have a favorite journal, and it's the Luchinarum.
Mm,
And it's funny, the reason I asked this is because somebody actually asked in one of our groups the other day about a new journal that lays flat that doesn't
yeah.
have a coil.
Yes.
And I thought to myself, right, there's reasons like can't have a coil, just period, cannot have a
No.
coil.
No, I used to
Um,
only like coil
really?
because it could like open and I could write on it, like probably on my leg, on my knee in like a chair or something.
Right.
And both sides were as easy to write on.
Right. Some stability there. Yes.
Yeah.
I understand the purpose of that. And I also really love all of the books. Well, there's one that I don't because we talked about line spacing. Line spacing is also really important for me.
Huge. Yeah.
But I
Not too big, not
love,
too small.
yeah, the journals and all of my pens are from Muji.
Mm,
Muji in Calgary?
no, but I've got a what is the word I'm looking for? Not toiletries.
Oh, some of
No,
the
just like what's a
packing
paper,
supplies.
no, just like paper and pens and,
Oh, stationery.
thank you.
Not toiletries at all. Do not wipe your bum with that unless you're desperate.
Yeah. Stationery store called Recess in Inglewood here in Calgary that I get all my pens and my writing things from. I found a pen. I went for one of my artist dates earlier in the year to Recess and was like, I'm gonna buy a really nice pen. And I wrote with all of their pens, and the one that I liked the best was, I don't know, this Pentel. Like it's just it was $2.
Oh, I love those pens. I love them so
And
much.
I love it so much. I go through that, like I go in, I'm like, may I have all of your Pentel refills, please? One time they only had three. I was like, I'm gonna need more than that. Like I
Yeah.
go through these fast. It's my only pen. So I've like slowly been using up the other pens that I have in my house because that's the other thing. I can't just throw something out like a pen if there's still ink in it, but I don't need 1,800 pens. And as a midwife, I kind of ended up collecting them from clinic and
Mm,
stuff. Like you just end up with 1,000 pens because you always need a black pen. So I now am down to there's only a couple extra pens in the house, including this Ritz-Carlton one that keeps breaking. But
yeah, it's broken. It's time to get another refill.
yeah.
I also pens are very particular for me. And so I like the pen that you have. I like the Muji pens, but only the fine or extra fine.
Yeah. It's got
Medium.
to be zero point 0.5 or
Yeah,
smaller.
or less. Yeah. And no, we cannot do a 0.7 over here. And
Nope.
and I also really love the friction pens for my planner because I
Ooh.
love planner and I live in my iCal, not iCal, my Google Calendar.
Hmm.
So there's a little tangent for you all about journals and whatnot. Tell us if you have a favorite journal, please share with us what your favorite journal is because I am open to many different flavors of journal. But Muji and I think it's pronounced Luciderm. It's a German company. So journaling, intention
Intention
setting,
setting.
card
Yeah.
pulling. Tell me about the cards that you pulled.
Yeah. Last year, I pulled a card for each month. I actually did it with a couple of girlfriends, which was kind of fun because then each month I'd send like our group chat the picture of what that month's card was. So that was a really kind of fun thing to do. This year, I was in Hawaii, as mentioned, and I had a couple of decks with me. And it was either on the solstice or the day after the solstice, I was like, I want to do a year ahead spread, but I really am not feeling the month by month. And so I decided to pull a card for each turn of the wheel.
Mm,
So that felt a little bit more like this is like aligned. This is aligned with what I'm doing, with what I'm teaching, with what I walk my clients through, and with how I'm attempting to live. So I actually pulled nine because I pulled one for Yule just now, and I pulled one for Yule 2024 as well. And then I wanted more than that. So I also pulled a tarot card for each season. So
mm,
winter, which we're in, winter, spring, summer, fall, and as an overarching kind of
theme.
energy or space theme. Yeah.
Yes.
So I really like doing that. And my plan is to pop them into my Google Calendar so that I don't forget. Because again, like these practices, 8 months from now, I'm not going to remember A, what I pulled, B, what it meant. And so I didn't even actually really read the descriptions of the oracle cards for each one. I just looked and was like, okay, that's cool. I took a picture, but I read the one for right now, where I am right now. Because for me, 6 weeks is plenty of time to try to hold on to a remembering of what the energies are.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's been that was my practice. Now it's something that I am excited to be offering to clients who are coming to work with me if that's something that they want to do as we embark on this deeper container
Mm.
together. I was like, oh, this feels like a lovely way to kind of set up the container for growth and healing. And it's something that I plan to carry on tradition with.
I love that. I also draw cards, and what you're reminding me of is to put them in my calendar because I put them in my journal. My journal has a certain structure. They go at the back of the journal because they're quick access into
Mhm.
things like that, and the rest of my notes and journaling goes in the front of the journal. So I can refer back. I also love a new journal whenever I do this. It often falls in place that I have one, but sometimes also just have a journal for this. And I remember the first time I did this, going back, one of my best friends, Mary. Hi, Mary. It was lovely to see you over on the West Coast. One of my friends sent me a link to a woman who had a Wheel of the Year book that she published every year. And so every
Mm.
year she had the dates of that actual year. And I remember looking at it and thinking to myself, like, how exciting is this that I'm going to pull a card for each Wheel of the Year, like each turning. And I'm also going to pull cards for the full year. Usually I do a 12, well, a 14 card spread. And it's always curious for me coming back to the book as I went through this. This was the first experiences that I had with the Wheel of the Year and how it really changed the way I looked at my year because of
Mm.
that energetic break. Now
Hmm.
we're looking at this and now we're looking at that. And I also find that sometimes for either following the 13 moons of the year or following the 12 months of the year, that sometimes it's too fast. Like I'm just getting into those energies. Although
Mhm.
the 13 moons is a really nice way to like open and close that portal. I still feel like the 12 months, sometimes I'm like, I'm not done with this because we're still in the cycle of the moon as somebody who really follows the cycle of the moon. But last year, I pulled my 14 card spread for just the 12 months of the year. And it's always surprising to me when I go back and look. And, there was some really, really, really hard things that came up in 2023 in my card spread. And I thought, I literally was like, I think I need to do a second card spread because this one, like maybe it was the energy that I was in. It was just like there was lots of shadow and lots of darkness. And I just like, I'm not quite sure. No, 2023 was all darkness, was all shadow. It was
Yeah.
all dealing with things. And interestingly enough, the month of May was probably the hardest month. It's also the month that my father passed in. And he, May 30th. So right at the end of that month. It was also a month that I made some new commitments to myself in terms of, rising above shadow, some shadow work that I was doing. And it also was the most difficult time in our household because of some things that were going on personally in our household. And the cards knew. I thought, May,
They
what's going to
just
happen
do.
in, yeah, what's going to happen in May? Like shit's fucked in May. Yeah, it was. Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting. I joined Carmen Spagnola's community for a month because I wanted to do her intuitive business planning workshop that she does every year and like get a taste of her Yule. It's a community I eventually hope to stay as a member in, but she does an intuitive business planning workshop, and the way that she pulls cards for her year, she uses calendar year because she's doing it for business, but she mixes together a whole bunch of decks on the ground, like big pile mishmash of all the decks you want to put into that pile, and then closes her eyes and pulls cards intuitively for that. And I did it, and I remember being like, well, that's annoying. I wanted to have a launch in February. Like it was
Oh,
just like
yeah.
this sense of, because she's like, I plan my, if this month is like do not cross go, she won't start something then. And so it was this interesting reaction in my body being like, well, screw that. I want to do it my way. And then I was like, well, but maybe you should
There's
listen,
something here.
Eileen. Maybe you should just, you know,
Chill.
let it be what it is.
It's so true. Yeah. Oh, a bit. I'm going to do a business one this year too.
Hmm.
What a great
Hmm.
idea. What a great idea to pull for business and for pleasure.
Yeah.
So I also love my end of the year is a lot of journaling. It's a lot of reflection. It's really cozy. Like I like ha 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 at myself setting intentions or resolutions. Like, oh, sweet child, you had no
Hmm.
idea. And especially as we ride, into January 1st and then in the first new moon of the 2024 year, all of these things are just so affect how I really intend to live my life and how much of a push it is. Like pushing, the rock up the hill to scramble for January 1st. And then we're thrown back into work. If we have 9 to 5s or something similar, our first week of work is just really orientating ourselves as well. Just like, oh gosh, what were we doing again? Oh, right, this is the
Hmm.
project we were working on. So it's just not a time. It's not a time. It's not a time, people. It's
No,
not a
it's
time.
not. Don't try. Don't try just yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Sit and dream and turn inward. We're still deep in the season of the Kyliach, the grandmother, the old wise woman, the crone. Brigid doesn't come back until Imbolc. That's the spring. There's just this real sense of we should still be resting and sleeping more and dreaming and planning, not executing just yet.
So this is your permission slip.
Mhm.
Everybody listening, this is your permission slip
Permission to chill,
to rest.
to rest.
Tell me before we wrap this episode up about your word of the year
Yeah,
and
I
what
didn't
words of the year is and like this whole concept. Tell me more.
totally. Yeah, I didn't start to pick a word of the year. This is actually only the second year that I've done it until I joined the My Aligned Purpose people, our business mastermind last year. And it's something that they encourage or do with community. Our coach Nick recorded a guided visualization for us to listen to and pick our word of the year. But it basically it's sitting with, some intention, some thinking about how this past year went and how you want to feel or what you want your guiding principle or guiding light to be in the new year. And so selecting a word to kind of guide you. And then for any decisions that you're making in the new year, asking if that makes you feel the word, like the word that you chose. So I chose the word courage for 2024. And my word in 2023 was simplicity, and I did not. I did not. I did not. If I had asked myself at each turn, does this feel like simple? I would have said no over and over, but I pushed my way through, and here we are, learning the lessons the hard way. That's the role of a 6-3 projector. But for this year, it's almost the sense of needing courage to embody or embrace that simplicity. But as I move through my year, asking myself, okay, does this feel courageous? And if it doesn't, if it feels safe, then maybe saying, oh, that's maybe not the space for me to go. Not that absolutely everything I do has to feel unsafe. But
Ooh,
that sense of applying your word to the year to kind of hold a container. And it's easier to remember one word than it is to remember some kind of vague intention.
agreed. Totally agreed. And I love
Yeah.
this desire. As somebody who worked with the desire map quite a bit in what feels like a previous life, but the beginnings of leading ceremony actually was the desire map for me. It is something that I've done for quite some time is to choose words or desires for both the new year, the turning of the year of January 1st, and for my birthday. And
Mm.
in the past, they've been like either sayings or something like that. And so one that a friend reminds me of often enough is this concept of like, do you remember the movie How Stella Got Her Groove Back?
Yes.
Okay, I've never watched the movie.
I haven't actually seen it either, but I
No.
know the movie you speak of.
So I'm not quite sure if this is the intention or not. But the one year my theme was how Ellie got a groove back. And it was just like, how do we go back to like we had gone so far off course? How do we come back to this place? And when I was thinking about the word of the year this year, it's something that I've definitely, embodied in the past many years. But I hesitated this year as I'm hesitating right now and speaking to it. I hesitated because I thought to myself, like, there are so many things that are going on, and 2023 was just this dumpster fire of shadow for me. Actually, the word of the year for 2023, looking back, should have been shadow. It was so we just needed a recourse and to rebrand what our word was. And this year I was really starting to think about what is it that I really want to embody as we move forward and to continue to embody as something that feels really good for me. And the word of the year that came up is magnetic. And the magnetism that I am really embodying this year is around being so wholeheartedly and unapologetically myself in
Mm.
situations. And we talked about this before we pressed record about, how hard it is sometimes to be our authentic self during the holidays because we have Uncle Stephen and Aunt Susan that are coming to some of the holiday dinners and whatnot. And this is just my practice to continue the course of, okay, I get to make the choice here to retreat, or I get to make the choice to embody. And this is where we're going with that. So Here we
Hmm.
are.
I love that idea of rebranding. I was like, what would I rebrand 2023 as? Oh, it would either be growth, which really encompasses a lot of the discomfort that happened, which is
Mhm.
like a nice positive one, or maybe disillusionment.
What I think I know, I have no idea about.
Yeah. Yeah, really a lot of disillusionment.
Yeah. I think you're also reminding me of, you said something earlier that, goes along with what we were talking about of forgetting what it is that either we've chosen as a word of the year or our intentions or any of these things. And I think that as we start either new planners or as we set up our schedule for the new year, that to set intervals for ourselves for review. And as
Yeah.
somebody who does, a seasonal review of my business and of my personal life, the review I think now needs to embody, are we rebranding? Is magnetism
Hmm.
like not where we're at?
Right.
Is courageous not where we're at? We actually need whatever this is. And to give again ourselves permission to be able to change that at any moment. And to understand that seasonally, this is the moment that we're in, that courageous and magnetism is the exact moment that we're living in, and that might need to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, I love that. That giving ourselves grace and not keeping ourselves pinned to something that no longer fits.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Here we are,
So if you
2024.
Yeah, 2024. If you have a word of the year that you want to share with us, we would love to know. Come join us over on the Instagram or send us a message through any of our other channels. And we'd love to hear about your word for the 2024. If you even have a word for 2024, if this is a practice of yours or any of the practices that you really embody moving forward into this new calendar year.
Yeah, come let us know over on Instagram or yeah, wherever you want to get a hold of us. Join our Patreon. Come chill in there. Come
Join
chat
our
with us in there.
Let's talk about Patreon just for a moment. This is our first month of Patreon, which is so exciting. This is like the foundational month.
Yeah.
Tonight, as we were recording this, it will be last week when you listen to this. We have our book club, but we also did this wonderful Witches Corner, which was a Q&A coaching session that just it was so good. There was so many juicy things that we saved for anybody who is in our Patreon as opposed to putting this on our podcast. And then we also have a new moon card pull, and there's lots of just moments in time to connect through community. And I think this is exactly what we're looking for. One of my intentions for 2024 is to have more both in-person touch points of community and online, because I want people from around the globe really to be able to connect with us. As somebody who has a large community still from living in a different province for so long, it I need places where we can all commune. So the Patreon is a
Mhm.
great place to do that. If you are more about adding woo and witchy things to your life and your intentions for 2024, come find us over on the Patreon page.
Yeah, it's the place to be for 2024.
Tell me about anything that you have coming up now in the month of January, or
Yeah.
if your cards have told you not until March. What's on the horizon for you?
I am, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I have a 6-month container, one-on-one container that I am currently in the midst of launching. The doors to that opened to the waitlist members today. It's not too late to hop on the waitlist if you are curious about working with me. And obviously, there's no pressure on the waitlist. It just means you get the details. I won't be actually releasing the nitty-gritty details until next week to the general public. And there are only 3 spaces. I'm only opening up 3 spots for a end of January start. But there'll be some one-on-one, some distance healing, probably soul council session thrown in there. So just to tease that out. And then obviously, if a deeper container isn't for you right now, because we are at the beginning of a new year, because so many people are seeking or looking for clarity or direction, soul council sessions are always available. And I think this is a really beautiful time of year to go and chat with your guides and find out what it is that you want to be pointing towards in 2024.
Who seeks out soul council sessions? Like who is the one-on-one container for as well? Like who is that woman?
Mhm. The one-on-one container is for the woman who has decided that they want to prioritize themselves,
Mm,
and also who might feel a little bit too busy to do so. So, part of the way that I work is with these remote healings being a piece of the work that we do together. And that happens while you go about your day. And then there's the ability to touch base via WhatsApp for that support in between, which is really lovely when it feels like you don't want to add another thing to your calendar, another Zoom meeting to your calendar. There is that one-on-one piece as well, but that is also in there. And it's really for the woman who is ready to shift those people-pleasing behaviors and tendencies, start to heal that witch wound. And for real, I was talking about, we might do all the inner work on our own and be like, yeah, I'm doing the stuff. And then we get into those triggering situations and revert immediately back to our old behaviors because it's hard and it takes practice and patience and it takes support. And so this is that supportive container for transformation.
I think the key thing here is that it takes support. Like even like we've mentioned before that you and I have met through a business mastermind that we're part of and probably may or may not have run into each other otherwise. And we're so thankful for that. And we're so thankful for that container because it is a moment where we can reach out and get support exactly when we need it. And there's many touch points,
Mhm.
which is really great. And I think that as we make these spiritual changes and as we enter the woo and become more woo curious, we are sort of floating around going like, is this right? Or what about this? Or what happens if I call in something that is, dark or not needed? Or
Mhm.
what, we don't really know what we're doing. And I think that the beauty of working with you is exactly this, is that they have somebody who that they can contact and reach out to say, I'm feeling like I need a clearing, or how do you know when you need a clearing? How do
Mhm.
you know whenever you need to, heal something? And
Yeah.
this is really the beauty of working with you, which I really love that.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, there was that sense of you can know all the things, but actually integrating it is a whole nother step and level. And I love working with people in the context of communication and relationships too. I think projector, but also Aquarian, one of my superpowers is being able to have like a bird's eye view of a situation and
Mhm.
really help guide and weave people through those trickier situations in their lives, which is one of the pieces I love about the WhatsApp communication throughout the container.
Mhm. Into it.
Yeah.
So into it.
Yeah. What are you delivering up and offering into this world?
So January 6th, which is Saturday, I'm going to do a closing the portal ceremony. And this is a ceremony that we're going to close off 2023 and energetically open 2024 as a
Mhm.
moment in time to possibly set some intentions light, LTE, but the main thing is to close off the portal from 2023. So the wildness and randomness or the joyousness of 2023, we're going to put it to rest. We're going to do some burning. We're going to do some journaling, some reflection, and just really like acknowledge that that is the place that we were, and then set the foundation for something bigger and better to happen, or not even bigger and better, but something new, anew, something
Mm.
anew. So that's January 6th. It is in the morning PST. The link will be down below. And then I have my Wild Woman, which is also launching at the end of January. And the Wild Woman container is a program for women who aren't quite sure why they feel disconnected, disillusioned by the current time in society, feeling like there's something more out there for them, understanding that they don't quite know where to turn to, for example,
Mm,
and yet need a community to move forward, to guide them.
mhm,
And this is all about getting back into, like, we have been trained, we have been really groomed into submission by the patriarchy. That's getting on my high horse for a moment here. And this is a
mhm,
moment in time for us to really do like a primal scream into the void of I am not here for this anymore.
mhm,
So it's all about setting the foundations and giving you experiences for you to set the foundations for how you want to live your life moving forward. And we're going to go through a little bit of a wheel or a cycle. Each aspect of this will include a ceremony so that we can open and close that portal, or actually close and open the portal for this next piece. So each piece. And
mhm,
I'm just really excited again. This is part of the gathering with other women and the part of the more ceremony in our lives, more ritual, more opportunity for us to even go like, I don't know what this is, but there's something here for me. And
mhm.
I might be a wild woman, but we're gonna uncover, we're gonna take those layers off first. So
Yeah, I
that's the
love
end of
that.
January as well.
It sounds like I feel like everybody should sign up for that and the complement of one-on-one with your community container. Let's just
We're working
I think
together.
both spaces energetically we are working together in a beautiful way and I love that delving into the wild woman. And yeah, fuck the patriarchy.
Bottom line, if you want to learn how to fuck the patriarchy, come to Wild Woman.
Yeah.
You need the one-on-one support, you're gonna go to Eileen, okay? But
We'll
sharing
also
your
probably
stories,
fuck the
yeah,
patriarchy.
definitely. There's no doubt about it.
It might
But
be a little bit softer.
just two different personalities as we
Yeah.
are archetypes as we that we embody, you know.
Yeah.
This has been great.
Complementary. Complementary
Totally complimentary.
archetypes. I love it. All the links for all of that will be in the show notes below. And yeah, thank you for joining us on this winding adventure of January 1st.
Welcome. Welcome to the new year. Thanks, Woo
Mhm.
Crew.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.